Hey guys, welcome to my December reading wrap-up. Now December was a crazy month if you've been paying attention to my channel at all. Between this channel, my Patreon, my personal channel, and my homeschool membership, I put out 28 videos. So I was doing a lot of work. I wasn't doing a ton of reading, and unfortunately, as you're about to find out, a lot of the reading that I did do wasn't very great. But there were some winners, so stay tuned. I filmed like weekly-ish wrap-ups again, like I have been doing for the last few months, but it felt a little bit more chaotic because there was so much other stuff going on. So let's get into all the books that I read in the month of December. I feel like you can tell that Vlogmas is in full swing because it's already the 8th, and I've only finished 2 books, which is less than normal for me, so I only have 2 books to update. The first one is 6 Crimson Cranes. I talked about this quite a bit in my first vlog in December. This is it's like an Asian fantasy story that reads as though it is actually from like an Asian fairy tale. So in this one, our main character, her name is Shiori, I think is how you say her name. She is the only princess of this land, Kyoto. She has 6 brothers. And at the beginning of the story, she falls into a lake and meets a dragon, which a lot of people don't believe actually exist. And in order to save her, he needed to put a sliver of his dragon pearl in her heart. And then she also actually has the ability to do some magic, which is frowned upon in her land, and this dragon teaches her kind of how to use her magic, and she becomes cursed. And the majority of the story is her trying to break that curse, and she kind of goes from being this rich princess, and I said in my vlog it kind of reminded me of A Little Princess, when she starts out as this rich girl and then she ends up being a servant girl, and how she still had wonderful character. Like Shiori was very much like that. She got taken down a few notches, but she was still a kind person, still helping people, and I still really like to see how she lived even when she wasn't this person who was, I don't know, just treated like a princess all the time. Yeah, so it was interesting. I'm still torn on whether or not I read book 2. I feel like book 1, like obviously there is a book 2. There is something left, I don't know, like that we need to uncover yet. But at the same time, I feel like it wrapped up well. The part that I wanted to wrap up did. So we'll probably get book 2 from the library instead of buying it, because I don't know if it'll be worth buying it. But I did really enjoy book 1. And then the second book I finished is Emily's Quest, a very different vein. And I started this one in that same vlog as 6 Crimson Cranes right at the end, and I mentioned that I was just loving the story. Well, it turns out I only loved like the first 70 pages, and I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads because I love L.M. Montgomery's writing. But I hated the story. I hated it so very much. Most of the book is people not admitting that they love certain people, but getting engaged to other people or dating other people, and then just snubbing the person that they actually love because they feel like that person maybe loves somebody else. And yeah, not how I would have chosen to have this story go, but her writing was beautiful. And it was really interesting to see Emily as in her like early stages of being an author, and her rejections and acceptances and how much that affected her. And it makes me feel like maybe that was quite a bit of I can't say her name, Maud's experience as well. I know she has said that she related the most to Emily, or Emily is the most like her, or something like that. So I still really enjoyed this series. I just wish this one book would not have gone the way it did. I would like her to please come back and rewrite this. But the beginning was so good. It makes me sad. I probably should have given it less than 4 stars, But even amongst the terrible things, like I just stopped tabbing things at one point because it was bad. Emily ends up engaged. She's 19 years old. She gets engaged to a 42-year-old man. Just as like one instance of things that are going wrong. But even just like amongst that and other annoying things that were happening, the writing was still beautiful. So I feel torn on that one. All right, it's been a little over a week and I don't even remember which order I read these books in. I think this order. Definitely anything over a week and I start forgetting what the details of the books. So the next one that I finished is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries. I was very curious about this one. This one definitely won in my like asking you guys to kind of vote on a library book that I had out. So in this one we follow Emily Wilde. She is a Cambridge professor, but she's going like up north, somewhere in Scandinavia, I think, to study the fairies there. She has studied fae people in different areas. So this is her next area, and when she gets there she starts kind of like putting out her feelers as she does in order to make contact with the fae there. And meanwhile her like almost what's the right word for him, like in the book it calls him her academic rival. It's like her yeah, I guess maybe he is, that's what he is. This other professor comes out for some reason, and she has always suspected that he was a fairy of some sort. So yeah, I don't know, things unfold. I gave this book, what did I give it? I think like a 3.75. I really enjoyed the historical fantasy kind of academic-ish vibes. It's got some definitely, like, it takes place over winter. It's very cold. Would be a good winter read if you want to feel cold in the winter. Overall, I enjoyed a lot about it. I wish there would have been some humor. I feel like that's what it was missing. I did a reading vlog talking about it a bit. One of the things I did enjoy is the footnotes. They always, not always, but like a lot of them reference other books that the author kind of has made part of this world. And I love it when books do that. It makes it the world feel bigger than just the story. Overall, I did enjoy the book. Book 2 made it onto my anticipated releases. I wasn't quite done the story at that point. I might read book 2 from the library at some point, but it's not super high on my priority list. I didn't love this. There's some other books on my anticipated releases that I'm looking forward to more, but not a terrible read. Then I read The Lost Boys of Barlowe Theatre by Jamie Jo Wright. Finally got this one done. This was one of my many-ish NetGalley books I've been trying to work my way through. This is a dual timeline set in 1915 and then present day. So in 1915 we are with Greta. She is pretty poor. Her parents died, I don't know, a few years ago. Her brother died making Barlowe Theatre, her older brother, and now she's the oldest and she's trying to support 3 or 4 younger brothers. And right in the beginning of the book she is at the theater with a rich friend, and Greta sees a woman throw a baby over the balcony, and they end up not being able to find a baby. So Greta is kind of considered a little crazy, so her brother Leo tries to go find the baby, figure out what's going on, and then he disappears. So lots of suspicious things are happening at Barlowe Theatre. And then meanwhile, well, not meanwhile, like in our present day timeline, we are with Kit, and right at the beginning of her timeline here, she is in the theater with her friend Maddie, and Maddie wants exposure for the theater, so she has got this show called The Psychic and the Skeptic to come out and like see about the ghosts in the theater, because apparently there is some, and then Maddie disappears. And so both the timelines are kind of going at the same time, and there's different threads that interweave. I feel like Jamie Jo Wright did a good job with the story. I like some of her decisions. I did not like Kit and her instant reliance on the handsome skeptic in the TV show. Yeah, I feel like she should have been much more skeptical of him and worried that he had something to do with Maddie's disappearance. But I really did like the older timeline, like the 1915 timeline. So this is not going to go down as one of my favorites, but I did enjoy it. It's kind of the theme of these 3 books. Then I read Christmas by the Book, and this is a Christmas story about our 2 main characters are a couple, Nora and Simon. They're in their 50s. They've owned this bookshop. It was Nora's mother's before her, so it's been around for a while, and the bookshop has fallen on hard times, and they decide to help out lonely people this Christmas season, and they have 6 spots that people can nominate people for a free book. So they take these 6 books, randomly wrap them, distribute them to 6 people, and these books kind of end up bringing people together. It's a sweet story. I like the idea. I did a Patreon vlog that I just finished about this book, or like mostly while reading this book, and my biggest thing is a Christmas book, a secular Christmas book without Christ is not. I just realized my Christmas lights, they're actually, are they changing colors? What setting are these on? Oh, they totally are. The kids are always messing with the remote. A Christmas book without Christ is not a Christmas book. Like there's people grieving in here, and like the grief just feels hopeless, and yeah, definitely want to stick to Christian Christmas books because that's the whole point of the season. But like this was a feel-good story at the same time. It had some good things going for it. Lots of bookish references. One of the characters, she has 2 cats and named them Tommy and Tuppence after Agatha Christie's detectives, or some of her detectives. I liked that reference. Lots to talk about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and C.S. Lewis. And I loved this quote. "The main thing is to get your boys to love reading. Once they realize that it's a pleasure, they'll want to read to themselves." So some good bookish stuff in here. Good cozy vibes, but not really like a hopeful Christmas story in my opinion. So yeah, mostly just like pretty decent, but like not my favorite kind of books this last week-ish. Okay, I just finished filming my January TBR and my voice is like kind of fried, but I have a bunch of books I finished and another one upstairs, but maybe I'll just talk about the ones that I finished here, and then I could add that other one onto my next wrap-up. We'll see if I can get through this. So I finished On Stories by C.S. Lewis. This is essays that he wrote on literature. I don't remember what I even gave this on Goodreads. It's an interesting bind-up, but not all of the essays are going to feel applicable. Like if you haven't read the stories, the essays are kind of pointless. So I read most of them, and I read one where I hadn't read the book and then realized this doesn't make any sense. But then I had read most of the other books that he talked about. But like he talks about The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, like that's all good. But then there's some other ones I didn't understand. So when I knew what he was talking about, I enjoyed the essays. When I didn't, I either skipped them or just felt very confused. Like he has some really good points though. I really enjoyed his talking. Well, first of all, when he was, I think it was The Hobbit or was it The Lord of the Rings? He totally predicted that that book was going to do really well. And he wrote that essay like right after it came out. His essay on 3 ways of writing for children was my favorite. I did pull out a lot of quotes from there. And like one of the most commonly quoted lines from him is, "When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly." Yeah, and that is true. Like, I can agree with that. But he has some really good points. I would recommend this if you're interested in C.S. Lewis at all, or some of his thoughts on some books or writing. It was enjoyable. I finished 2 devotionals. I'm totally going out of order here. I got this for Christmas last year. It's Mom Heart Moments by Sally Clarkson, daily devotions for life-giving motherhood. Now, I'm not usually a devotional kind of person, but I found a lot of wisdom in this book, and it's Sally Clarkson, so it's not surprising. Her devotions start out with like a verse or 2, and then, I don't know, like kind of a story from her life, and then some questions and things to ponder. And I feel like that is the format for a lot of like devotional type things, but I don't know, hers were more applicable. They made me, I don't know, maybe they just hit me better in this moment in time than some other ones have before, but I really enjoyed this and would recommend it. Then my mom gifted me Emmanuel, An Invitation to Prepare Him Room at Christmas and Always. So I read this from December 1st to 25th, and it is a gorgeous Advent devotional with a reading for each day, and lots of watercolor illustrations. Some days were better than others. Obviously, like, some things hit me more. I think, like, you know, if I read it again next year, different things will hit me. But I would also recommend this. It's so gorgeous. It would be really beautiful to gift people. Okay, 2 more left. They're both fantasy. First of all, I had to go buy this book after Amy talked about it. Wormwood Abbey. So this is book 1 in a cozy gothic fantasy series. Book 2 is coming out shortly. I guess by the time this video is out, it might be like next week. So I shared about it in my anticipated releases. I was anticipating book 2 before I even read book 1. So this one is about, what's her main character's name? Edith. She's a clergyman's daughter, and her father tells stories about how he saw a dragon when he was little, and right at the beginning of the book, her father's brother has died, and he has now inherited Wormwood Abbey, and there's all these suspicious things going on, like maybe dragons actually are real. And our main character, Edith, I really like her. So she writes detective stories in like under a pseudonym. This is set during the Victorian era, so it's not very common or acceptable for her to be writing stories, and it is super cozy. It has really good light overcoming dark imagery, and I really enjoyed it. Super short. Like, my only complaint would be that I would kind of like it to be fleshed out more. I would like to spend more time in this world, but then it wouldn't be the same kind of book. So I enjoy it for what it is, but also wish there was more at the same time. So I would really recommend this if you like, either want to dip into fantasy or like books that are like cozy. I think you'll really like this. And then I read another fantasy book, Ember in the Mist. This is also book 1 in a series. I don't know when book 2 is supposed to come out. So our main character here is Naraya, and she lives in this village, which at the beginning I got like vibes of The Village, the movie. And so they're not allowed to leave the boundaries. There's like a mist. You kind of go crazy if you leave the boundaries and go into the mist. Like, you go crazy and you're never seen from again, kind of thing. But Naraya's mother has gone missing, and things are like getting more, I don't know, I think the darkness is like creeping in on their village, and so they're getting a little desperate and things transpire. I'll say that. There's this one, I think I also gave 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. There was a few moments where I was confused as to what I was trying to visualize, which can happen to me in fantasy, but I feel like it needed a little bit more words for me to like really understand what was going on. But I would be interested in continuing this series as well. Okay, then I'll be back soon with more books because I definitely have one more upstairs yet. So that was a good stint of reading. Okay, so I'm glad that December is actually officially over now, because I don't know, my brain has not been functioning. I think I haven't updated about this one book. If I did, oh well. What Katy did at school. So I really enjoyed what Katy did, especially the second half. This is a book that was written in 18 something, I can't remember, like the Victorian period, but it's set in the United States. And so I decided to continue along with it because I own apparently book 3. I thought it was book 2, but it's book 3. So I wanted to read book 2, which is What Katy Did at School. And I really did not enjoy this book. We followed Katy and her sister Clover as they went to school quite a ways away from where they live. I don't remember the geography. Still in the States, but just a different place. And I loved those girls. They were great. But the whole boarding school aspect, I don't know, I feel like sometimes I like it and sometimes I don't. And in this case, the girls were so immature, especially as girls in the Victorian period. And this book was written then, but if it hadn't been, I would feel like the author was taking liberties, if that makes sense. Like, it just felt like these girls were just, they were so annoying, honestly. And yeah, we just follow them over the course of, I was actually kind of confused because I don't understand how the school year worked. I don't know if we were there for like 1 or 2 years, or I think it was maybe just a year. And things went down. I don't know. I'm hoping book 3 is better. If not, I think there's even more books in the series, and I won't read beyond book 3 unless book 3 is amazing. And then I may as well talk about my other ebook, because I finally read He Should Have Told the Bees by Amanda Cox. I recently had that book out from the library. It had to go back, but it's one of the books I have out on NetGalley, and I've been trying to clean up my NetGalley. I'm not allowing myself to request any books from there until it's back to 100%. I've read all the books, and then I'll decide what I want to do from there. So I read it and I loved it. I was like, why did I take so long? So this is not dual timeline, but dual perspective. We follow 2 young women, one named Beckett. She lives on a farm. Her favorite thing on the farm are her honeybees, and she has extreme anxiety. This was such a good time for me to read this book. I highlighted so many passages. Amanda Cox gave us so many lessons about honeybees and like life, and I loved it. I have to write a bunch of them down in my commonplace book because there were so many good quotes and paragraphs and lines that I just really enjoyed. So we follow Beckett, and then we also follow Callie. She lives in a town or city, and she sells like, what is it, like kind of like natural hygiene products. So she sells soap, she sells candles, I don't remember what all else, but and right at the beginning of the book, right before the book started, Beckett's father died, and Callie is named in the trust. So these women meet each other for the first time and try to figure out like why they're both named in this trust. And the only complaint that I have about the book is every Christian fiction book just seems to have every single person paired off nicely at the end. And that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I would sometimes like it if it was a little more common that didn't always happen. But Amanda Cox's writing is amazing. I actually finished this on December 31st, and I'd already filmed my favorite books from the trimester. So that one actually squeezed in, but I didn't get to talk about it, so I might just pretend it was like a January read. Then I talked about this in my favorites book. It's Tim Keller's Hidden Christmas. So this just takes a closer look at the birth of Jesus and like the Christmas story. And there were a number of things that I took from here and put into my commonplace book. And when you read the Christmas story over and over again, I think you lose a lot of the, I don't know, wow factor, for lack of better words, in my brain right now. He was talking about how, how Joseph would have had to like have admitted to people that Mary's pregnant, but it's not his baby, and he'd have to be like, but no, don't worry, it's the Holy Spirit. Like, those would have been some weird conversations, and you get so used to the story that you kind of like don't think about that stuff. Highly recommend this. I would like to read this on a fairly regular basis at Christmas. I got it from the library. I was really excited that I got it a couple days before Christmas, and went to put it into my Goodreads only to find out I'd read it 4 years ago. And I only gave it 4 stars then. But that was a December where we had just started fostering. Me and 2 boys had pneumonia. There was a stomach flu in our house. There was a lot going on, and so I think that was more of a matter of circumstances that I only gave it 4 stars, because I gave it 5 stars now. A DNF. I did not finish my Calamity Jane. I did read like 130 pages. This is interesting. So this has 3 authors. The whole series is Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. And this book felt like it was written different. Like, I was curious. I'm curious to know if each of the ladies took the lead in each of the books, because My Plain Jane was definitely my favorite, and this is definitely my least favorite. There's some social agenda stuff going on here that I wasn't a fan of, but also just the writing. And then other things. So my Calamity Jane, like, we're in the Wild West, and like they feel like they, did I mark it? Oh, also there was a dog that kind of talked to one of the characters, and I really hate it when dogs talk to people. Oh, there was a reference to Marie Kondo, where one person was putting her clothes in a drawer in a certain way, and one person was like, why are you putting your clothes like that? Because it sparks joy. Anyway, what I was trying to say is, like, there was a scene, because they often break the fourth wall, the narrators will talk to us, and there was a scene where they were talking about like gun safety and guns and like different things, and I was like, well, I didn't feel like they needed to say that, because obviously we're set in the Wild West. We know things are different then. Yeah, so there was just a few things that bothered me, so I decided just to quit it. I did know going into this one that it wouldn't be that great, and I heard the same for, I don't know where it is on my shelf, My Calamity, nope, My Contrary Mary. Yes, right, it's one of the 12 books, 10 or 12 books I put on my list that I want to read this year. So at least I know going in to have lower expectations. And then the final book I'm going to talk about, I shared these in no particular order, is Lost in Darkness. So I did talk about this in a bit in my reading vlog. I didn't get it finished. There's a lot of like medical stuff in here that was grossing me out. So we're set in 1815 in England. We have our main character Amelia. She is a travel journalist, and she gets summoned to go home. Her father has died, and his last wish is that she help her brother get this major surgery. So her brother has this disease that he's disfigured in some ways, and yeah, so he's supposed to have this procedure, and obviously one of the doctors is a love interest for Amelia, and then yeah, I don't know, like the other doctor is doing so many sketchy things. There's a lot of things I didn't like in this book, but I did like certain things. I liked the idea of it. I wish it would have been executed better. I wish the ending would have been different. I would have written that different. Yeah, and so there is like a book 2, like, so this is kind of loosely based off of Frankenstein kind of idea, and then there's one, Man of Shadow and Mist, I think is Dracula. I'm curious because I've heard better things about that one, so I'm gonna give that one a try. Yeah, this was disappointing though, because I thought people really raved about this one, and there was just a number of things that really irritated me. So that is my wrap up for December. I read a lot of books. One that I absolutely loved, oh no, there was 2. Hidden Christmas made it onto my trimester 3 favorites, and then He Should Have Told the Bees would have, if I would have filmed it a little later. I would love to hear what you read and enjoyed in December, if there's any disappointments. And I will be doing my favorites video of the year coming up soon, and then I will also be doing my worst and most disappointing books over on Patreon in my Windy Poplars tier. I'm going to be doing a video for them talking about all the disappointing books, so if you're interested in that, you can come join me over there. Thanks so much for being here, guys.